Well, good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started here, and I realize this is a small crowd, but I'm going to use this microphone because we are broadcasting this live on Ustream. I want to make sure that it gets picked up, the sound gets picked up here. So I'm Andy Hill, I'm Superintendent of Schools. We appreciate you coming out tonight for our second annual State of the Schools address. What we have in store tonight, a couple different parts. The first part is going to be an examination of where we currently stand. We'll give you some figures as far as enrollment and staffing go. Talk a little bit about our academic, our most recent state report card, and then our financial situation. And then we want to move into where we're headed and talk about some initiatives that we have going right now within the district, within each area of our district 5-year plan that was created last year through our open forum process and board approved in June. And then at the end, we'll leave plenty of time for questions, comments, concerns, anything you have. So I ask if you can hold those till the end. We'll make sure that we stay around till the last question is answered. And as always, if we don't have an answer for you tonight, we will make sure that we get an answer and send that out to anybody that's signed in tomorrow as a follow-up. So just to start here, our district enrollment figures for the year. We have total in the district on our campus 1,158 students. But overall, within our district enrollment count, students that count for us that are not on our campus, on top of that 100 are 1,158. We have 65 students that are at Maplewood, and we have another total of 39 in the district that are what we consider to be an out-of-district placement for various reasons. A lot of those are students with special learning needs that we do not have the programs here to be able to fund. So we go ahead and we contract services through the county ESC. So our total number of students that gets reported for Waterloo is 1,271. But on any given day, only 1,167 of those are actually on our campus. The other breakdown here is between regular education and special education. The blue is regular, the red is special education. And the reason that that's important are some things that we get into a little bit later on when we take a look at state ratios, how many teachers we need. There's different calculations that are done for students that are on an IEP versus students who are not. As far as staffing goes, try to give you a breakdown here within 3 different categories. The first is certified staff minus administration. See that slide here in a few minutes. Within this blue, the dark blue, are the number of regular education teachers that we have. So the total of regular education teachers in the district is 56 and a half. The red is the special education. We have a total of 9 special education teachers throughout the district. Then we have tutors. These tutors, those of you that were involved in following what happened here last spring, know that those tutors are positions that are covered through federal funds. We have 6 of those 14 are resource room tutors that we use Title VI-B money from the federal government to fund. The other 8 are Title I tutors, and we use the title money for those positions. And then K through 12, this little block here, there's 8 positions that are certified staff that are non-administrative. We have, I think with the psychologists, it's about 1.6. The reason that we need those is our special education population. We have to do by law testing, reevaluation of testing. So we were able to actually reduce that number this year. We had close to 2 full days, and we've cut back this year based upon what we felt we could get by with to meet our needs. Guidance counselors are a part of this group. We have 2. We have one individual that's in charge of, she's the coordinator and teaches gifted education. We have 1 nurse, K through 12. We have 2.3 in our area of technology. And then media specialist, can't see it here, it'd be really tiny at the bottom. We have somebody that does that 1 hour a day. It's actually a teacher who up until this year had been full-time media specialist, and one of our cuts was to move her back into the classroom. So part of her duties each day, rather than being in the lunchroom, she serves as our media specialist for 1 hour a day. As far as classified staff goes, 2 different categories here. The first is the positions that we have, and you can see here the different categories: secretaries, maintenance, mechanic, bus drivers, cafeteria, aides, and custodians. So within the district, the total number of positions is somewhere right around 55. But when you actually take a look at the full-time equivalents, it's actually below 40. What happens here is that a lot of these people serve dual roles. They may be a 2-hour-a-day aide during a bus run because we have a student whose IEP calls for them to have an aide on the bus, and then help us out in the cafeteria a little bit later on during the day. And then the last breakdown here is administration. We have 3 principals, 1 in each building. We have a part-time supervisor of transportation. That has changed from this time last year. We had a full-time supervisor of transportation, building and grounds. So we've cut back. That's now part-time and just transportation. We have 1 cafeteria supervisor that oversees our cafeteria program, 1 treasurer, and 1 superintendent. So over the last 2 years, we've had a number of reductions that have happened. We've lost 11 certified staff and 4 non-certified staff. Some of that was through attrition in positions that were not scheduled to be replaced. Others were through reduction in force, which we've had a lot of over the last 2 years here. But just from last year alone to where we currently stand now, these are the positions that were part of our 10% reduction that equated to the little bit over $1 million that we reduced from our operating budget last year. So there's no longer computer/study skills class for middle school students. There's no longer high school consumer science. There's no longer elementary art. That was a part-time position, but we no longer have that person doing the art. We no longer, with the exception of the 1 hour a day, have the media specialist, so that's scaled back greatly on the responsibilities of that job. We eliminated the high school and middle school deans of students, and then 9 different supplemental contracts for extracurricular activities. To give you an idea here, we've eliminated a paid assistant football coach, a assistant boys basketball, the supplementals for high school yearbook, high school literary magazine, high school newspaper, the audio-visual positions at both the middle school and high school, the chess club, and middle school student council. So we have had a pretty significant reduction from where we were just this time last year without even looking further back over the course of time. Academically, we did very well on our most recent state report card. These are released towards the end of every August. Last year, if you remember, we were excellent with distinction. This year, we were able to maintain the excellent rating. I'll get to where the distinction part was lost this year and how that's calculated. But they have a number of different factors when we look at these report cards that are taken into consideration. The first are the indicators. On the different test scores, there's cut points that you have to be above in order to be considered meeting that indicator. There's graduation requirements, attendance requirements. So as a district, we reached 24 of the 26. AYP, adequate yearly progress, is something that's a result of No Child Left Behind. And adequate yearly progress takes a look each year not only as the overall population but all the different subgroups. So as a district, we were able to meet AYP again. We actually met AYP in all of our buildings. But if you have a student that's in the middle school, you may recall at the beginning of the year a letter came home saying that the middle school was still in what they call school improvement status 1 delayed. And why that is because for 2 years the middle school had missed the reading special education subgroup from making AYP, which bumped them into school improvement 1 status. This past year they did make it, but in order to get out, you have to make it 2 consecutive years. The performance index, I have a little bit more on that here in a moment. This is the highest our district has ever been. And then value added is actually the measure that can bump you up a designation, which last year we were above what was expected. This year we met what was expected. So with our performance index, you can see here that we are climbing steadily each year. And just a brief word about how this is calculated. I personally think this is one of the most useful pieces of information on the report card, because what they do is they take all of the tests that were taken and they assign a percentage weight to the different things. So all the way down from untested, somebody didn't take the test that was supposed to, all the way up to advanced. And then they give you the total number of tests that scored within those range, and that's how they calculate this. So to be climbing like we are every year with our performance index means that we're moving students from one level to the next and being able to do that effectively. All of our buildings also had their highest performance index score in their history here this past year too. The AYP, there's 2 different areas. There's actually a number of different areas, more than 2, but it's reading and math that they take a look at, and then they also look at graduation and the attendance rate. And then they break it down and take a look at all of our different subgroups. So for us, our subgroups are special education and the economically disadvantaged. Those are where we have enough students in each to actually measure. Value added takes a look at where students, whether they're making a year's worth of growth from the year before. And so you can see here that where you have a plus indicates that they were above what that expected growth would be. Where there's a check mark, it's where they expected it to be. And if there's a minus, that's below where the growth was expected. So overall, we had a composite of meeting it. And then our other buildings, our elementary and middle school were designated effective, and our high school continues to be at excellent. I think it's 5 or 6 years now that they've had that rating. So I guess to sum up our academics right now, as far as the state goes, the way that the state measures us, which is just one source, we're doing very well. But as you can see in here, we have areas that we can definitely improve upon too. And so some of those things that you'll hear us talk about in a little bit with our initiatives focus in on how can we better serve some of these areas. far as the financials go, it's probably no surprise to anybody that's here that we are having some significant financial difficulties. The top portion here last year, we have to submit a 5-year forecast every year by, is it October, end of October? And last year, because of everything that we went through with the $950,000 million reductions, we actually submitted a revised 5-year forecast in the spring to the ODE so that they could see how things had changed. When we go back a year and when we failed that first levy attempt, the thing that kind of happened simultaneously was we got word from the state that they were going to cut our funding. And we weren't sure how much that was going to be, and we spent 6 months, 5 or 6 months, planning for worst case scenarios, somewhere around 20%, yet recognizing it would probably be closer to 10, or at least we hope so. And so once everything settled in June 30th when the fiscal year ended, and we were able, Todd Carpenter was able to sit down and redo the calculations. What we're looking at now is a projected deficit that we have to eliminate before the start of next school year that's a little bit over $380,000. And so that's our goal here as we move forward. We have to eliminate this. And you can see as we grow each year that the number just gets larger and larger. So why is that happening? We've lost a significant amount of money. By the end of fiscal year 13, it'll be over close to $1.2 million that we've lost, most of that from the state. Some of it actually is local, but the bulk of it comes from the state level. So you can see here, this is kind of a more detailed visualization of this graph. And it shows the different areas. So the dark blue is our state foundation, which is the bulk of our money that we get from the state. You can see here that this is steadily declining. We have the TPP, which is the tangible personal property, which is almost non-existent because what they've done now is phase that out over the course of this next biennial budget. And so that was a big hit for us. The state hold harmless is something that's disappearing, as is the stimulus. You know, the Governor Strickland's second biennial budget kept school districts pretty similar to where they had been the previous years with funding. I think there was a 1% decrease the first year and a 2% from where they were 2 years ago to the second year. But he did that largely by taking that one-time stimulus money from the federal government and plugging the gap. Well, what happened here is that Governor Kasich came in and had a different viewpoint on that and said that that should have never been factored into there. And so they don't even show that as money that was reduced from the state level. They just assume that that's money that should have never been. The other piece that we have this year, but we won't moving forward, is the Ed Jobs money. That came out in the fall of 2010. Our district got a little over $300,000 for that and chose to hang on to it until this year to use. But again, that was federal one-time money, and that was only in our budget for the one-time use. And then the last piece that is local was the emergency levy. That expired in 2009, 2008. Collections, last year collections were 2009. That wasn't bringing in a ton of money. It was a little less than, I think, $200,000 at the end of its life. And what happened was the board was in a position where they knew in 2008 that more was needed than what the emergency levy could bring in. So they made a decision to let that emergency levy, which I think was collecting at 1.21 mils at the time, they made a decision to let that expire in hopes that they would be able to pass the larger levy issue, which I think was 4 something in March. What was it? 4.95 in March of 2008, which ultimately failed. This kind of shows our yearly revenues and expenditures. You can see here that we've been cutting these expenditures to get in line. We're trying to start to bring our revenue back up from this decrease that we're taking. An interesting thing here, and something that we're trying to focus on, and you'll see some of this coming up, are these students who've left our district. And for one reason or another, we have 148 kids that could be in Waterloo. And 33 of those are at community schools, which are commonly referred to as charters. 33 of them are homeschooled, and 82 are open enrollment out. They leave us to go open enroll in a neighboring school district somewhere for various reasons. We've looked at this before. We've tried to understand why. We sent, actually last year in September, I think it was, or October, this number was actually closer to 200. I think it was in the 180s or 190s. And we sent out a survey to those families asking them to either complete it online or to mail it back, letting us know why, with some different questions we were looking for. I think we got about 12 of those back. So not a lot. I think there were 75 families represented in that number of students. But we were able to draw some conclusions from what we received. But what we mostly found out was the reasons were all over the place. And a lot of different reasons. Homeschooling, one of the main themes that we saw with that was religious reasons. The open enrollment was a variety of factors, as was the community school. And something that I want to mention to you here on the financial side, and this is not the best picture. I wanted to kind of show you what it looks like, even though it doesn't look good. I will post this presentation to my website by tomorrow morning, so you can click on this if you want to go to it, this link here. These are comparison reports that you can access through the Ohio Department of Education. And what they do is they update this each year. So the most recent data that's out deals with fiscal year 10. The fiscal year 11 will probably come out somewhere around the end of this month if they hold true to last year. But what you can do in this column here is select the school district that you want to use as your district. Then what happens is it populates all of your information at a number of different categories. Just to read off a few so you get the idea of what type of stuff is here. You can see the personnel services as a percent of the operating revenue, expenditure per pupil, the expenditure per pupil equivalent, full-time teaching equivalents, average teachers' salaries, full-time administrator equivalents, the ratio of pupils to administrators, the cost of benefits, building and operation maintenance, they have a lot of detail on that, transportation and food service. But so you get the county averages compared to yours. You get the local report card, similar districts, the state groups districts by groups of 20. And they figure out a method of putting together districts all across the state that they think are very similar to yours in many ways. Then you get the state average. Then you can come over here and select any other 3 districts that you want to pull up that same type of information. So this is a great tool that's free and available to use to be able to take a look and see how Waterloo stacks up against others. So as we move forward here and talk about what's happening, what you're going to see here now comes right off of our district's 5-year plan. We are working from that plan that we put together through our community meetings and other opportunities where we can listen and then put together some stuff that made sense for us for action. So what are we doing within the area of academics? Right now we currently have what they call an Ohio Improvement Plan. And if you take a look, if you've looked at the 5-year plan, this Ohio Improvement Plan is the one that's the most technical with education jargon. That's because that plan actually gets submitted to the state. And so what you'll see in there are things like trying to work with those populations where we were having some difficulty in reaching AYP, some different strategies for that. You'll read about some stuff where it talks about response to intervention, which is basically using data to make decisions and differing our instruction for students' different capability levels. But each of our buildings then, off of a district plan that was created last January, turned around and created a building level plan that aligns with those goals. So there's a lot that's being done with our teachers and with our principals working towards the goals that are outlined in that plan. The Common Core standards, we have changing that will be taking place with what's expected to be taught at each grade level. Ohio is part of the Common Core movement, so with English, language arts, and math, and then some other subjects that they're currently working on. There's been a set of standards that have been adopted nationally. I think last I knew there was 46 maybe states that had also adopted those like Ohio did. Those have to be in place by the fall of 2014 for the 14-15 school year. So what we at Waterloo are doing right now with those is actually kind of reviewing those, looking over what they entail. We actually are using our February waiver day, part of our time that day, to have a representative from the Education Service Center here in Portage County give an overview to our teachers on those standards. We're working to create an ACT prep class and how that would actually look. We're working with our high school principal, guidance counselor, our gifted coordinator, and myself right now. At some point we'll probably open that up and get some feedback from our department chairs. We heard pretty loudly last year at our forums that even though the rigorous classes are what the ACT says is the best prep that the student can do, if we could create something here for our students that could help prep them with different test-taking strategies for tests like the ACT, that would be a benefit. So this year, our plan outlines us working to create that. Our goal is to have something in place for students next year. What that will look like, we don't know yet. If it'll be something that's offered during the school day, if it'll be something actually that may be possibly combined with the dual credit class we could offer to get college credit, or if it may be something that's outside of the regular hours that we offer to students and give them the opportunity to be here. We're still in the initial stages of that. Our credit flexibility plan is in place. That was created last year, something that all school districts in Ohio have to do. We now have the opportunity, though, for our students to say, I don't want to take American history, give me the end of the year exam and let me see if I'm proficient and be able to get credit for that. Or let me go out and design my own course of how I want to go about achieving what would be taught in some other class, and then put together a plan that gets approved to be able to go out and do that with some maybe real world opportunities that tie in. So that credit flexibility plan is up, it's running. We've had very few that have taken the opportunity to do that, but we're still fine-tuning some of the pieces that go with that. And we're trying to figure out how we can work in our new Viking Digital Academy with that piece too. We think that opens up a lot of opportunity for students, and I'll get into that in a minute. We have discussions going on with Kent State, Youngstown State University, and Stark State to offer dual credit classes here. What happens in a dual credit situation is our teachers get approved to teach what they're doing here as an adjunct professor through the university, and then students that are in that class can also receive college credit while they receive their high school credit. The advantage of a dual credit program is that those credits are guaranteed to transfer to any Ohio public state system college, as opposed to maybe an AP class, which we have a couple of here, where you have to take a test and then you get a 1 through a 5. Whether or not the college takes it depends on what your overall score is. So we're in some discussions. We had one teacher that was approved to do a music theory class for this current year from Kent State, and we're working with Youngstown State and Stark State on some English, language arts, math, science classes, business. So we'll see where that goes. We started this discussion last year, and we were going to continue it this year, and that's the whole idea of weighted grades. If we did something like that, what would that look like? Why would we do something like that? We did a survey at the high school level, and 75% of our students at the high school indicated on that survey that if they felt there was an added incentive to take the more rigorous classes or the classes that are deemed more rigorous, that they would sign up for those. Right now there's discussion of, and we heard it at some of our forums last year, discussion about whether taking the rigorous classes and the possibility of having their GPA drop a little bit as a result steers some of our better students away from those. So I don't know where that discussion is going to end up. We've tried to look at it from all angles. We want to create something that's fair for all students, because if we have students that are working hard within their area and doing their best, whether that's with the rigorous classes, whether that's with our general curriculum, whether that's at Maplewood with their trade curriculum, we want to make sure that they're recognized for that, and we don't want to close opportunities to them. We're also taking a look here at how we could better utilize grade level and subject level acceleration. We have what I would consider to be a beautiful opportunity on this campus because of its central location and all the buildings attached, to be able to offer students that are excelling in an area the ability to move up in the subject to another grade level. And we have a great gifted program here. We have a coordinator that works really hard, but when you have one person for an entire district, you can imagine the limitations that are there, and that's strictly a funding related issue. So I think one way that we could address some of that is to better utilize what we have in place as far as our district policies go with this whole idea of acceleration. Whether that's, when we talk acceleration, there's really 4 different components that there can be to that. Early acceptance to kindergarten, grade level acceleration, skipping an entire grade, subject level acceleration, or early graduation from high school. Those are kind of the 4 components that fall under there. So we actually had a department chair meeting today, and this was the focus of much of our discussion, reviewing what our policy is for the district, making sure that we don't have any barriers in place to keep our kids from being able to maximize their potential, and then moving forward from there with our next steps. And then the last one in the academic realm that we're working on right now is this Viking Digital Academy. We formed a partnership with a place called ACE Digital Academy this past spring. Our board approved it. So what we do is we purchase curriculum through ACE. ACE has curriculum. They have they may even be over it now, 150 different courses K through 12. And what we do is we purchase that curriculum from them that's aligned with the state of Ohio content standards. And then we either use one of our building teachers here, or we use an ACE teacher, and we assign them to the students for each of the subjects. So why would we look at doing something like this? If you go back a little bit here to the students who have left our district, the bulk of these community school kids in charter school are students that are in an online setting through econ, through K-12. Homeschool, we think this is another area where maybe we can't get the student to actually come here full time, but we may be able to get them, especially as they get older in their homeschool situation, to enroll through the Digital Academy to take some upper level electives that they have, that we offer. And what this does for us is a couple different things. One, I think it provides a great opportunity to our students, because students here too, through credit flexibility, can tap into the resources that we have with this Viking Digital Academy. We could also use that Viking Digital Academy to do things like credit recovery for students at high school that are struggling, some summer school options, different things. At the same time, every student that we bring back to this district brings with them about $5,723 that gets deducted when they leave us automatically through the state funding mechanism. And it costs for us to be able to do a full-time student in this Viking Digital Academy is about $1,600. So for every student that we bring back here, we're helping our bottom line by not losing that money by about $4,100. So currently we have 10 students that are part of the Digital Academy. Now most of those students have not come back to us. They're students that we've kept from leaving us. They've approached us about withdrawing to go to econ, and we've been able to keep them here. So our hope is to be able to grow and to be able to attract these students back. And maybe even through open enrollment, attract some of the other students in area districts that may have an interest in this online learning. Why is Waterloo so different than an ECOT or a K-12? Well, a couple of different things. First, students that are full-time students in this can participate in extracurricular activities according to the Ohio High School Athletic Association rules and other district guidelines here, but they can be part of that, which those other avenues don't offer that same opportunity. They also get a Waterloo diploma if they successfully graduate from here meeting all of their requirements, which are the same as the requirements of our students who are physically here. And that's important because public school diploma is considered a Tier 1 diploma. When it's strictly done through these online type schools like ECOT and K-12, they consider that to be Tier 2. So a student, for example, that's going to the military, they have quotas on how many students from Tier 2 they can actually accept into their recruitment class. Tier 2, just some other examples of what's at that Tier 2 level, are homeschool, students that have been homeschooled, and GED. That's all included in that area. So we think that that's another attractive thing that this offers for us. We were able to do this with minimal expense too. I think it cost us $1,000 as a district to partner with ACE for the year. And all of the other expenses that are happening with that are expenses that we're using with the money that we have for the students staying here, coming back to us. Within the area of finance, what we have going on, we've created a grant committee. That was something that we heard loud and clear last year from various people as we held these forums, that we needed to be more active in pursuing grants to see what outside money we could bring into the district. So we held our first meeting last Monday, actually, December 5th. We had some good people show up, some people in the community that have had kids here in years past that have graduated and moved on, that have experience and expertise in this area, along with some parents that are currently have students here. And so what we've done is identify areas that we want to initially begin to focus on, and it's going to be the area of technology, but kind of 4 components of that. First would be the infrastructure. There's a lot of things that we'd like to do, and I'll get to that when we get to the technology area. But in order to do that, we have to have a system here that supports it. One of our biggest obstacles in here is wireless access. You can see by this long white wire I have roping through here that this is not a wireless friendly area where we're at right now. There are some areas in the building that are, but most aren't. But also servers and other things, we want to make sure that what we have bandwidth-wise is able to match up with where we decide to move with this. Instruction, we have a number of different pieces, and we'll get to that here in a little bit, that we want to be able to give teachers as tools to integrate in with what they do. It doesn't replace what they do, but it's a great tool to allow them to have to help with student learning. Safety and security. We have some updating we'd like to do to our video surveillance system here within the buildings. We'd also like to add that same type of stuff to our buses. And then a longitudinal data system, which is something that will greatly help teachers with being able to have all the information for one student in one place and be able to spend their time making professional judgments on what's best for a student instead of having to go and pull all the information from numerous places. So we will be actively working within that committee. A couple of them, one of them reviews grants on the federal level with different things, works for some universities in the area, and she's going to be looking for the grants that fit within these areas. We have another person that was part of the committee that has access to a grant database that's going to be doing the same. So I would anticipate that we will be moving on this very quickly. And there's always room. If somebody has an interest in this, we're always looking for help. Within the area of the school and community relations, some of the big things that we're trying to do is just get the word out and communicate. And we're trying everything we can. We have an online newsletter that's done. Actually, it'll probably be tomorrow. We just proofing it today. Either tomorrow or no later than the day after, we'll have the next version of that out. We send that out through email updates. If you want to be part of that and you're not, just leave your email and make sure it gets added. But we have these district committees, a volunteer committee to talk about here in a few minutes. We have a key communicator group that's been meeting monthly. I think we've had 3 meetings and we have 3 more to go. And the whole idea of that is we take these areas like academics and we spend an hour and a half kind of going through where we are as a district, answering questions, trying to get those individuals to fully know what's going on so that they have facts, so that when they're out in the community and they hear something that's inaccurate, they can tell people, you know, that's not right. Here's what the truth is. I think that's going to be our best way of being able to spread the messages, person to person. We're dabbling in these. These came out of the forums last year. Still learning how to do this, but we are using Facebook, posting messages. Mostly what that's being done is just another medium of getting the messages out that maybe come through email. That is linked directly to Twitter. So if you're following us on Twitter, you're probably only ever seeing 160 words of whatever it is that's put out there because it cuts it off. Then we have this Ustream, which we try to do just about every meeting we do now is broadcast live like tonight and then archived so that people can go back and view it. We started that last February with our board meetings and then the other forums that took place after that. And we get anywhere, according to the records on there, between 40 and up to 80, 90 views on these different meetings that take place, which is good and encouraging. This is probably also, though, one of the biggest areas of frustration because we just don't feel like we're getting out to enough people. And we're constantly looking for ways that we can do this better, ways that we can reach other pockets of the community that maybe we're not reaching. So when we get to the end tonight, if anybody has suggestions on this whole idea of communication and how we should be getting the word out, please share. We're continuing to struggle with that. We have our website, our district's website, too. All of those things that you just saw, you can access right off of the homepage. There's places you can click to sign up for the email list, where you can click to find all the other information that was there, plus a lot of other things. And then in addition to this, our teachers have websites that are linked off of here. Our administrators have websites that are linked off of here. I personally, any presentation that I do at board meetings or these other things like tonight, those go up right away on my website so that they're accessible for people to be able to see. Some other things with our school community relations. We have a volunteer committee. I mentioned that was another big topic last year during our public forums, was trying to find ways that we could responsibly bring community volunteers in here to assist. So we had the first meeting last week, and we'll continue to move forward from there, seeing what we can do. We're in the process of exploring with our department chairs whether or not we should require students to do community service. It's an idea that came out of the forums last year, one that we're very interested in, whether it's required or whether it's something that we encourage and set up some type of system for. Our goal is to try to have something, a decision on this, and something maybe in place if we decide to move forward before the start of next school year. And in collaboration with area colleges and universities, we're trying our best to get out, to meet the different people that are leading the different area colleges and universities to find out how we can collaborate together. We had a meeting with Neomed over the summer. We actually, which has led to another meeting that we're going to be having with them next week that they're coming out here with in regards to their STEM school that they're starting. We have some things happening right now in our middle school, hopefully with Kent State University, and some student teaching service people that they may be able to get out here to assist our teachers with students and different needs. So we're trying to build on these and see what it is that they can offer and what we can offer them. As far as technology goes, this is an area where we have a lot of potential and a lot of discussion going on. We have a district level technology committee that's looking at policies that we have in place to to make sure, again, like I mentioned before, when it comes to these policies, that we have things that are smart, that makes sense, that keep students safe, but that don't act as barriers to what it is that we want to do with moving forward with things. But we've been doing our best to find money to be able to integrate different pieces of equipment, smart boards, these inner-right pads, which also project on the wall. They're kind of like a smaller version of this, basically. These response clickers. Teachers, we have a number of sets of these now where teachers can get automatic feedback on students with what they know right there on the spot. They can get breakdown. They can go back further later on and review the detailed information to find out which kids are struggling, which aren't. We've made a move this year over to open source software in an effort to try to save the district money rather than purchasing license for things like Microsoft products each year or whenever that is up for renewal. We've moved everybody over to these Google applications, which are free and which are pretty much affording our students the same type of opportunities that PowerPoint or Word or Excel would. And so that transition, no transition's ever pain-free, but it is moving along slowly. We're learning the different pieces of Google that we need to as we are presented with problems, but by and large it's going well. And where our hope is that will free up some money that we can then turn around and be able to put more of these tools in there for the teachers to use with our students. We have some other programs that are being used, and then GradeLink was our other piece of technology that we implemented. I think it was the beginning of the 4th week of school, to allow parents, guardians to be able to get on and track their students' progress. And so we're still getting used to that program. We have expectations that is regularly updated weekly by our teachers. And we went with GradeLink because we liked the features that it had. It allowed us to be able to have parents sign up to get email updates when a grade falls below a certain grade or an assignment does. There's so many different features that it has, and it's such a great communication tool. But as with anything, this doesn't replace face-to-face interaction. It's just another tool to help aid with what's going on. So there's a lot happening within the area of technology. We're considering and the board will be at some point as we move these discussions forward, things like if our resources are so limited, how can we tap into the devices that students have with them? 50-60% of these kids have their own smartphone that have internet availability on them. How can we utilize those as a learning tool in a way that's responsible and keeps people safe? So those are the kind of discussions that are happening right now that eventually will lead somewhere with how we do these things. As far as facilities, safety, security, transportation, that area, we are going in consultation with the Portage County Sheriff Department and some other local school districts. We are going to be going through in February with our staff and then eventually teaching our students the same procedure. We're going to be changing over how our intruder response looks. The Portage County Sheriff, this program called ALICE, which is Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate, is a new way of looking at these things that many districts are looking at and utilizing. And the county sheriff encouraged us, all of the school districts in Portage County, to be open to looking at this and working with them. They'd like to have all the schools on this if possible. But it's a different philosophy. It's not everybody's locked in a room, lights off, hiding in a corner in this building if somebody's up in the high school. It's constantly informing people of where the intruder is and getting people out of here from the other areas, getting them to a safe point, which in many ways makes a lot of sense. So we're going through right now revising our plan with how we respond to that type of an emergency. We'll be doing training in February and ultimately working with the sheriff to put that in place for next fall. I already mentioned the video cameras. That's part of what we're going to go after with grant money for both to upgrade what we have at the campus as well as put some on our buses. Exterior lighting, one of the components that was on the plan was to evaluate our exterior light situation. Right or wrong, good or bad, we heard numerous times through forums and elsewhere that you look like an airport with your lighting outside. And so we looked into that, and to try to balance when it comes to that safety, security, liability issues with what can you do. And so after having conversations with the lighting companies, our architect, our liability insurance carrier, we found a solution where we've installed kill switches. I think they're on 18 of the 36 posts outside, the tall light posts. And most of those 18 are turned off, and what we've been doing is turning those back on when we have large events in certain areas. And then we turn them back off when they're not needed. Each of those poles, they're estimating, is about $344 in savings per year to use them that way. So I think at any given time, we have about 15 of those poles turned off. And then quarterly monitoring of our bus routes to ensure maximum efficiency. Our routes are running very efficient. You can't really squeeze a kid more, if 2 kids more on most of our buses. Every now and then you may see a bus that looks like it has a low student count on there. Most likely that is one of our special education buses that's running a handful of students to one of the other locations where they go. As far as our regular buses go, the bulk of our buses, those are pretty near capacity, and for most of those buses, capacity I think is 72. So they're really on there. Since we did this last year in the middle of the year and switched to the one route K through 12, we have been realizing the savings that were projected, and the efficiency should increase for us. But nonetheless, we continue to evaluate that to make sure it's done the best. And then as far as the faculty, staff, and student personnel, obviously we want to be able to attract and retain the best. We want to be able to have the best teachers, the best administrators, the best support staff here for the students of this community, because we think that translates into the best results. It's hard to do during a time like now with the financial situation that we're dealing with. So we're trying to find ways to be able to do that, but stay within the framework of what's been happening here, which has been freezes across the board for the last few years. And then also a number of concessions that took place last year with healthcare and some other areas. The board is going to be having, and part of the plan was to examine our extracurricular offerings and what that's going to look like, not for this year, but beyond. So one of our tasks as we look to how we eliminate that $380,000 is going to be, what do we do with pay to participate? Right now we do have fees. They were implemented November of 2010, but they're minimal when you compare them to a number of other local places and state averages. So the board's going to have to look long and hard at what do we do about increasing those. And there had been some discussion prior to the last levy, and the board at that point was comfortable with saying it have to increase at least 3 times. But I think there's further discussion to happen on that to see where we go. Because at the end of the day, I didn't bring my numbers, but I think at the end of the day, our extracurricular offerings, whether it's academic or athletic, when you subtract out all the expenses and all the revenue that comes in, and then also including the pay to participate revenue that we project right now currently, I think it's about $210,000 that those programs cost the district out of the general fund. And so as we're looking to have to cut $380,000, and being so close as we are to state minimums, which greatly increase the number of students in the classroom, greatly decrease the amount of extracurricular offerings we can have for students, especially as they get older, there's going to have to be some tough discussions that happen with what we do with this too. That's outlined as part of the plan. For what it's worth, we don't see anything changing for the rest of this school year. We wrote into the plan that the fees that are in place for the 11-12 school year will remain those amounts for the 11-12 school year. Anything that happens within this area will not be occurring until next school year and then beyond. So where does that put us when we take a look at all of this? Puts us back on the ballot in March. We want to be able to provide the students of this community with a top-notch education. And we think that what you saw with the academic report from the state shows that students are getting there. You know, like anybody, we have areas that we can improve in. But by and large, when you take a look at these outside measures, our students are doing well, comparatively speaking. But we worry about where that goes as we continue to have to cut, and cut. You know, we have elementary classes now that are 30, which as a teacher, no matter how good you are, you can't do with 30 kids what you can do